Hi everyone, welcome to MakerDAO Collateral Call. This one's number 32. It's crazy how far we've come. My name is Juan. I'm the facilitator for the core unit called SES, Sustainable Ecosystem Scaling. And we are here joined by Stefan George from Gnosis, and he's actually going to be discussing the project and the collateral onboarding application, so the MIP6 for their token, which I'm not sure how to pronounce. So Stefan, if you want to give an introduction of yourself to the people.
Sure, yeah, thanks Juan. Thanks for having me, and everyone, thank you for joining this call. Yeah, I'm Stefan and I'm co-founder of Gnosis. Me and Martin, we started working, my co-founder Martin, we started working in blockchain already in 2013, working on actually prediction markets built on top of Bitcoin. We could use Bitcoin as collateral. And then we discovered in 2014 Ethereum, and we realized we could build a much better, more decentralized infrastructure for prediction markets around Ethereum. And so we joined actually Consensus as the first members in beginning of 2015. And so we experienced the entire crazy journey of Consensus and Ethereum. And yeah, we spun off from Consensus in 2017, did our own ICO, was one of the first ICOs. We used a Dutch auction at that time. We were the first to do such an auction, and yeah, reached also an insane valuation at the time, raised 250,000 Ether, and that allowed us to build Gnosis and build everything that we did in the last couple of years, which is quite a lot. We also did quite a few pivots. So originally, as I mentioned, like the mission of Gnosis was to build prediction markets. And we released several products for prediction markets, but we also had to realize that prediction markets did not get the traction that we hoped for. And so we decided to also branch out into different fields. So we were very early involved also in the development of decentralized exchanges. One of our engineers actually came up with this very famous formula, the constant product formula that's used by Uniswap and many other exchanges. We decided to not pursue this, but focused on batch auctions instead, because we saw many issues with this, especially in terms of mine extractable value, things that for many years were completely irrelevant and just recently actually surfaced for the majority of users. And we've been developing quite a few technologies around this, which now finally get the attention and also traction that is needed. And we also worked heavily on wallets. So basically for our own ICO, because it was basically one of the first, we also had to create a lot of infrastructure, including a multi-sig wallet that allowed to store ERC20 tokens and the proceeds from the token sale. And because many others were following, having the same problem, they just copied our software, obviously. And that's kind of how the Gnosis multisig became the standard for treasury management on Ethereum. And we continuously developed it, and out of this, and the Gnosis Safe emerged, which is now has basically fully replaced also thanks, I guess, to gas costs, but also the utility and user friendliness of the Safe has fully replaced the old Gnosis multisig. And now we're here. Actually, it's not the first time that we apply for Maker. We were actually, just when multi-collateral DAI was about to launch, we were already applying in the first batch. I think rightfully so, we were not selected. At that time, it was very early, but I think now it's a good time to reapply. And I want to give you a brief update on where we are now after a couple of years of developing. And so last year in November, we made an announcement to turn Gnosis into a DAO, into Gnosis DAO. And right now, still Gnosis is operated by Gnosis Limited, which is a company that holds the funds and that employs everyone. But similar to how you guys approached it, we want to continuously decentralize Gnosis. And we did the first step back in November last year to create Gnosis DAO. And the role of Gnosis DAO will be to govern two things. One is the development and the funding and the monetization of Gnosis products. And secondly, also to maintain and use the Gnosis treasury, which is very significant. And yeah, that's also up to this date, the main purpose of GNO, to be used as a governance token. There is a lot of potential to use tokens within the product that we have been building, but it has not been, frankly speaking, our priority, simply because adoption was, the first thing we wanted to focus on, getting adoption for the safe, getting adoption for our exchange technology. And of course, there are ways how to monetize it, and it's also partially already built in, but the GNO token itself is not yet integrated into it, but that's obviously a step that is pretty straightforward. Now, I'll get back to this in a second. So yeah, just the summary of what we currently work on. We work on the Gnosis Safe, the multisig wallet. We work on Gnosis Protocol, which is a decentralized exchange protocol. We work on Gnosis Auction, which is also a decentralized exchange, but a very different focus of price finding. Actually, we also looked at how the maker auction works, and also quite we think it's like a very, very good auction design. Actually, we're almost thinking about copying it. But yeah, and then we also work on general infrastructure for Ethereum. So we have been maintaining the second largest Ethereum node by node count, Open Ethereum, and recently made the announcement to join efforts with Aragon to replace Open Ethereum, which is a very old code base which we inherited from Parity. And we believe Aragon is actually what will dominate the future and actually has the possibility to have a more diverse client landscape on Ethereum. This is mostly a public good, obviously, or like it is a public good that we do because we believe it's important to make progress on Ethereum 1. Ethereum 2 is great. We also, of course, are supporting Ethereum 2, but we felt Ethereum 1 development was a bit neglected and we wanted to support it. And that's why we invested into this, also supported by the Ethereum Foundation. Let me briefly talk about the products. And Gnosis Safe is basically the platform right now for most projects, for funds to maintain and manage treasury. You guys know it, you're a user, you're one of our customers. But there are also many others, including Bitfinex is using it for their cold storage. Synthetics is using it, Uniswap is using it. Vitalik recently moved his entire Ether into a safe. So we have quite a few users. And in total, I think over 1.7 or 1.8% at this point of all Ether is held in Gnosis safes. In total, it goes up to $20 billion of assets in total being stored in Gnosis safes. Here's basically the GNO dashboard that we use to keep track of this. There you can see basically how it develops over time. It's all linked in the presentation as well. So the safe is pretty successful. Of course, the question arises, how can it be turned into something that's also profitable? Again, like this has not been our main concern. Main concern was first adoption, but we reached a level of adoption where you can think about this. And there are two ways how the Gnosis Safe can be extended. One is on the smart contract layer. So you can write modules which allow to extend the access rights for how someone can operate with Gnosis Safe. And then there's a layer on the UI where you can extend how users can interface with Gnosis Safe contracts. This concept is called Safe Apps. Many Safe Apps have been built. And we also continuously develop the Safe Apps SDK, which allows to get the most out of the user experience, so like the possibilities that the Gnosis Safe can offer. And there's potentially also a way to monetize it, similar to how InstaDepp is also monetizing InstaDepp for taking a cut for certain transactions which are facilitated over InstaDepp. You could have something similar on those Safe Apps. Also, basically, you could have a sort of a token curated registry for those, or maybe Harburger tags for what kind of apps get the biggest user attention, or might be the default app for token swaps, lending, and so on. The other big potential revenue stream I see is in insurances. So a lot of big funds are contacting us to use Gnosis Safe. A lot of institutional investors come into the space and they basically have to use the Gnosis Safe. There is no alternative. And for them, basically everyone has the question about insurance, like how can I ensure the activities that I do. And well, yeah, there we are obviously like the interface for them, and that's a potential revenue stream as well. How exactly tokens can be involved here, we will see, but there's a huge potential for revenue. And then we have Gnosis Protocol. Gnosis Protocol has been in the works for a couple of years. Like recently, we launched Gnosis Protocol version 2. And Gnosis Protocol is what we call a MetaDex aggregator. If you operate on regular exchanges like Uniswap or 1inch, then what the user does is he is actually signing a very concrete execution path. And in Gnosis Protocol, you don't do this, but instead you're signing a message, which is basically signing your trade intent. So for example, instead of saying I go over these pools to swap a token, I am only signaling that I want to exchange, let's say 2,500 DAI for 1 Ether. And then this order is given to a mempool of Gnosis Protocol orders. And then what we call solvers, they can take those orders and they can create the best execution path for those. And because Gnosis Protocol is a batch auction system where you collect those orders over a period of time, you can try to find also direct matches between those. So if someone wants to, let's say, buy Ether in the same period of time where someone wants to sell Ether for the same token, then you can match those directly. And you don't even have to tap into any on-chain liquidity where you have to pay a fee. And this is good for many reasons. One of them is it can also help to reduce MEV. So basically, we allow users to submit orders with a very small slippage, such that it's basically not profitable for miners to extract value. And our solvers are able to combine those orders into a package and send it submitted to miners, soon also using flashbots to avoid miners to extract value from those transactions. Total, it has over $100 million in volume so far, and it's increasing, and yeah, it's going quite well. Definitely MEV is a topic which recently became quite some attention, and it's actually a big issue for Ethereum. And we believe we have one of the, or maybe the best solution right now on the market for traders to avoid MEV. And I think I saw a number yesterday that until today, over $650 million has been extracted in value from users trading on DEXs and doing other activities. And yeah, we believe that this kind of technology will be able to reduce this very significantly. And yeah, then we have also Gnosis Auction. And Gnosis Auction is also a batch auction mechanism, but it's very different from Gnosis Protocol. Gnosis Protocol is really about instant exchange, or close to instant as blockchain can be. Gnosis Auction is about price finding mostly, to find like a fair price for a new asset. So for example, when an organization wants to launch a token, doing an ICO or like an IDO, then the price for this asset is not known, and we developed a mechanism that allows to find a fair price. And we do this by applying batch auctions to this. Gnosis Auction is very simple batch auction design, where you can define that you want to sell a certain amount of tokens over like a certain period of time, let's say 2 days, and then anyone can place bids to buy this token. And once the period is over, then we calculate the final clearing price by going from the highest bids first, going down to until the point where the entire amount of tokens that were supposed to be sold are sold. And then the last order that gets in defines the final clearing price for everyone. So everyone gets the same price. And yeah, this was quite successful. We already had some very successful auctions. The first auction was a boson sale. I think they raised in total $25 million, and we're quite happy about the outcome of this. And it also proved to be actually working, because the price, which was defined as the final clearing price in this auction, also turned out to be the price where the token was later trading at after the tokens were available on secondary markets. Yeah, potential revenue here is of course also protocol fee. It's already implemented, same as with Gnosis Protocol. There is also a protocol fee which can be activated. Right now it's 0. But the more adoption this protocol gets and the more attention it gets and the stronger the brand is, the more likely this can also be switched on. Actually, there's one interesting auction coming up very soon from a project called VitaDAO. They do longevity research, has been endorsed by Vitalik and also by Lars, I believe. So I expect this to be also a pretty interesting sale to watch, and facilitated using Gnosis Auction. I mentioned before, we have looked also in other auction designs, also in the Maker auction design. We find it pretty convincing. Yeah, we might actually try to make this also more broadly available, not only for the use case of liquidations in Maker, but I think it's actually a good use case also for generally, treasury management of DAOs, for example. So we see lots of DAOs have huge treasuries, and they have to convert some of those. And right now there's no exchange available where they could possibly do this other than actually Gnosis Auction or at some point Gnosis Protocol. And we see this as a growing market, which is quite interesting. And yeah, I think we have the best solution for this market. Actually, it also has been used already by UN Finance and other DAOs to convert part of their tokens. Uniswap is currently looking into this. Aave is also looking into Gnosis Auction for certain liquidations. So yeah, we're quite excited about this as well. Yeah, then it looks at the GNO distribution. That might be interesting for this discussion as well. There's a total supply of 10 million GNO. Market cap as of today is $266 million. So about 11,000 addresses holding GNO. And the biggest part of GNO is actually not used right now, which is 8 million or 8.5 million. Those 8.5 million are sitting in vesting contracts. When we announced Gnosis DAO, we also try to give an answer to what happens with the majority of GNO that we still hold. And the answer we came up with at that time was, okay, we put those tokens into vesting contracts. So those are linked here, also in the presentation, which will vest those tokens linearly over a period of 8 years. And it remains to be seen how those tokens will be used. It might be an option to burn some of them, or I would consider it actually probably the most likely, simply because there's a lot of tokens left, and it's would dilute current GNO holders very, very significantly if we would put all of those on the market. But it remains to be seen. It's obviously part of the DAO to decide on what happens with those tokens. Then other than these tokens investing contracts, we have 0.6 million, which were given to the entire Gnosis team over time. This also includes contractors which work for Gnosis. And I think over the years, it might apply to actually over 100 people. But right now there's about 65 people working on Gnosis on different parts of Gnosis. We sold 0.4 million during the ICO, and 0.4 million were given to early investors in Gnosis. And I guess the biggest question that still remains to be answered is really what happens with those 8.5 million tokens. Right now, 0.5 million are vested to Gnosis Ltd, but we are also strongly considering to just move them also to Gnosis DAO and just let the community decide on what will happen to those. Then in terms of the roadmap, so as I mentioned, we initiated Gnosis DAO in November, and the main action we did was to transfer those 8 million GNO into vesting contract, which is transparently vested to Gnosis DAO. But this is not the final step, obviously. So right now, at the time when we started Gnosis DAO, it was basically just a safe, a simple safe with some anonymous signers. And this setup did not allow us to fulfill the DAO mission that we actually had in mind, that would allow us to do a lot more things. And in order to get to a point where we can do what we actually want to do, it has to be much more decentralized. And that's why we were working on a new framework to allow to upgrade safes into DAOs. And that's what we call SafeSnap. So we basically implemented a new access module for Gnosis Safe, which allows to make snapshot votes on-chain executable. So Snapshot is this platform that allows very simple gasless voting, which is great because, well, right now still gas costs are still significant. Also for Maker, you also face this problem of voter apathy, where these gas costs prevent participation. Snapshot solved this by just having only signed messages, but comes with the enormous downside of not allowing those to be on-chain executable, trustless. And that's what we enabled with SafeSnap. So we built this module which allows us to put like a finalized snapshot vote on chain and make it executable. And so we have the best of both worlds, big participation through gasless voting, but also the on-chain enforceability. And that was one big step for us to get to this point. Also, many other companies or organizations committed to use SafeSnap. Among them, I think SushiSwap and also Yuan Finance, I think, is looking into it. But this was also not everything. As you guys know, transforming a legal entity into a DAO is quite a cumbersome process. It can take a long time. And so, yeah, we faced, I guess, similar challenges here. And yeah, it took us also a while to find a path where we can transform Gnosis Limited into Gnosis DAO. And we found a path forward. And one big step to this is also GIP 10, which I linked here, which is the participation agreement, which is basically allowing Gnosis token holders to participate, voting on Gnosis DAO without having enormous liabilities. It also reduces the liability of Gnosis DAO itself and also those service partners working on it. I guess you guys have something similar. Otherwise, might be interesting for you guys also to look into it. We have spent quite some time on figuring out how this participation agreement can look like. And we did all this work also to finally follow up on our promise that we did when we announced Gnosis DAO. And part of the promise was to transfer 150,000 Ether into Gnosis DAO. Right now, Gnosis has still, obviously, very significant treasury. And yeah, we committed to move a part of this treasury into Gnosis DAO. Even at that point, even Ether dropped quite significantly, it's still a very significant amount of funds. And yeah, we want to follow up on this and actually do this transfer now, or like very soon as those two GIP 11, GIP 10 are accepted and implemented, we can actually fulfill this promise. And that's, of course, also very interesting, I think, from a maker perspective, because this opens up how those funds can be used. And in the past, we have been using Maker DAO quite a lot already. So Gnosis DAO or Gnosis Limited has been participating in yield farming activities the entire year. So we were very early in all the yield farming programs, and we use the Ether responsibly to participate in those. And yeah, I have to say also thank you to MakerDAO. Thanks to you, Gnosis was a profitable company, even though none of our products made money. Gnosis could still run profitable by participating in all the yield farming activities and also obviously using MakerDAO. For us, MakerDAO was very important because we are very bullish on Ether and have always been. And that's why it's a tough decision for us to sell Ether. And we rather would not sell Ether. So we decided to use MakerDAO to create a very large CDP. I think it was probably the largest at some point. And we used our Ether to generate at some point, I think, about 40 million or 50 million DAI to participate in yield farming activities. And yeah, that worked quite well. And we expect also Gnosis DAO to continue doing this. Of course, I cannot speak for Gnosis DAO, but it only makes sense for DAOs to use their funds to participate in treasury management and in yield farming activities responsibly. And as such, I think MakerDAO will be a very important part of this. Also, I think MakerDAO can help in helping to distribute GNO further. Right now, we of course provide significant GNO liquidity on different exchanges, mostly decentralized exchanges. And it would be for me also very interesting to have liquidity provided for GNO DAI. And for this, of course, we would also, as you guys have seen here, like we are going to transfer funds, Ether, and project tokens that we have invested into, including Stake, which is XDAI, GIT, the Graph, PNK, which is Kleros, and some other tokens. But we are not going to transfer stablecoins. Those we need in Gnosis Limited. And so, yeah, the question for Gnosis DAO will be, okay, how can we provide liquidity for GNO DAI, for example? And for this, Gnosis DAO will also probably create a CDP to provide liquidity for those pairs. And yeah, I would also like to recap a little bit how the relationship has been between Gnosis and MakerDAO. So as I mentioned before, this is not the first application, it's the second application. But there were also other points where we had like touch points between Gnosis and Maker. One of them was that just at the time when Maker started using a more decentralized Oracle price feed, we were one of the parties to participate in this. So since 2019, we provide a price feed for the Maker Oracle. And then also last year, when Maker, when Maker was a little bit at risk during the Black Thursday, we decided to, I think Greg from your team reached out to us, and we decided to create a big CDP at the time and generated a significant amount of DAI. At that time, it was a significant amount, and sell this amount of DAI on the free market using our own exchange to maintain the pack of DAI. And yeah, lastly, of course, Gnosis is also a customer. I think it goes both ways. We have been a big customer of MakerDAO. You are also a customer of the Safe. So I think we had already quite a few points of collaboration, and I would be very excited to see how we can get to the next step where eventually GNO can be used as a collateral in an MCD. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Nice. Thank you, Stefan. Is there anyone that wants to go first? Pros, Frank?
I could take a stab. Isn't directly related to the collateral part, but I'm curious just from like dealing with Maker and trying to work on so many different things at once. I'm curious how you manage to iterate on so many different different core aspects of DeFi. Like seems like any one of these would be pretty revolutionary, and you guys are hitting them all at the same time. So like how does management look like that for that?
Yeah, it's not easy, but that's also actually one of the drivers for turning Gnosis into a DAO. We want to have independent teams where they don't face bottlenecks which are given by management or by being part of like a big organization like Gnosis is today. De facto, already today, teams are fairly independent. So we have dedicated resources for the Gnosis Safe and dedicated resource for Gnosis protocol. We also decided to, actually, I know it looks like we work on many things, but it has been even worse before. As you know, like we come from prediction markets. Prediction markets actually the one thing that we stopped doing because adoption was just too low. But yeah, for Gnosis, compared to Gnosis like 1 year ago, it's actually quite focused. But yeah, we have basically dedicated resources for each of those projects, and that makes sure that those can also proceed fast, but we can even be better. And we are thinking about doing spin-offs of Gnosis, and eventually it could also result in a system where we have Gnosis DAO as like the main DAO, but then we have sub DAOs for the different projects and allow them to be more independent. Of course, the question is how's the relationship to the Gnosis main DAO, but I could also see that Gnosis could continuously incubate new projects, get them to a stage where they can operate by themselves, and then letting them go on their own, maintaining, of course, a share of ownership in those. That could be a very successful model.
Hey, Stefan. Oh, sorry.
Go for it, Frank.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I heard you say incubation. So I wanted to go back to this CowSwap that you presented in that slide. Is that a project you guys incubated, number one? Number two, I'm trying to understand how you're going to incur revenue from that, because I guess it's a separate protocol, right? And it sounds to me like what you're doing is you're cutting out the market makers and the LP liquidity providers for making a fee. So I didn't quite get how the CowSwap thing works, and more importantly, how Gnosis makes revenue out of this.
Yeah. Good question. So CowSwap is a Gnosis product. We purposefully did not brand it like Gnosis specifically because we wanted to, we felt like, or at least we wanted to experiment with this, and we felt like it might be actually more successful if we don't associate it with Gnosis. And it worked quite successfully. I think this cow meme, cow actually stands for coincidence of ones, meaning if two traders want to do the opposite trade in one batch, they can be matched directly instead of tapping into on-chain liquidity. And yeah, how can we make money with this? So yeah, what we currently do is we try to match as many trades as possible directly, so you don't have to tap into on-chain liquidity, which means also that you save a significant fee that you would otherwise have if you trade on-chain. So if you trade on Uniswap, for example, you can easily have a fee of 30 basis points, maybe more, and that's a fee that, well, basically we can try to kind of cut this fee out and instead match people directly, and then you can take still a reasonable cut of maybe like 10 basis points or something that we figure could work. We actually also work together with professional market makers because they can mostly offer better prices than on-chain available. And yeah, that becomes then quite tricky to find a good price or like a good fee that can be taken, because they obviously offer like a smaller spread than on-chain. And then even 10 basis points are already significant. But yeah, we work with the market makers that you also, I guess that maker also knows quite well. Will not mention their name, but yeah, you should know them. And yeah, they also of course also need to get their fee. And so yeah, we think something hopefully between 5 and 10 basis points is finally a protocol fee that we could take. And this hopefully will be enough to pay solvers, which have to do the submission on chain, but also pay Gnosis DAO in the end for the maintenance and development of the protocol.
How fast are the trades, Stefan?
Yeah, so we have currently a batch time of 30 seconds. So basically every 2 blocks we are able to settle. And that is also, we figured this is kind of a user experience that is acceptable. I would actually argue the user experience on CowSwap is better than on other exchanges, because in CowSwap, what you do as a user, you just sign a message and you don't have to deal with the whole transaction submission. You just sign a message and then it's up to the solvers to submit everything on your behalf. You also don't pay gas costs if your trade fails. But based on my personal experience, also what we analyzed on chain, it's actually much more reliable, because our software is of course more sophisticated in figuring out what is the right gas price and how inclusion can be guaranteed than a regular user submitting orders over MetaMask. And that's why the user experience is significantly improved compared to trading on Uniswap or other exchanges. And I think that's also what users of CowSwap really appreciate, that you just sign a message, everything else being taken care of. And you also save significantly depending on what kind of order you submit, because you're protected from MEV, and it's also aggregating liquidity sources. We have already one integrated in Paraswap, and of course have also our own solvers, which can then also conclude those ring trades. So let's say, Juan, you want to trade DAI for Ether. I want to trade Ether for GNO, and someone wants to trade GNO for DAI. Then if those orders are like separate, and we cannot find like one ring to match all of those, but because we collect them over a period of time, they're available within one batch at the same time, and then the solver can directly match those without even having to tap into any on-chain liquidity.
But how do you deal with liquidity then? Like that's my.
Yeah, so we have we can, if let's say you want to buy Ether with DAI and someone wants to sell Ether for DAI, then we can directly match those and we don't have to tap into any on-chain liquidity. Okay. But most of the time, of course, that's not given. Like most of the time you will be able to match a fraction of this. And then what we do is we match the fraction of this, and then we use the remains for matching it on chain. But then of course, only a fraction of this has to go on chain. Only a fraction of this has to pay the fee on chain. And that's why everyone saves some fees, which are then not paid to liquidity providers.
Nice.
This is all off chain, right? It's signed off chain, but then comes back on chain. So what happens if I want to trade DAI for, say, something like wrap near? I'm not even sure if that's a token, but something that's illiquid like that. It doesn't get executed within 2 transactions, right? Sorry, within 2 blocks, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the way how CowSwap, so there's a difference between CowSwap and Gnosis protocol. Gnosis protocol allows all kind of orders to be submitted. CowSwap purposefully only lets you submit orders which are valid for a few blocks. And solvers are only able to match it within a few blocks. And if it doesn't get matched there, then the transaction, then your order cannot be executed anymore. Then it's just unfortunate. Then you hear a sad moo on the exchange. But if there's liquidity on chain, then we will use your liquidity on chain. If you find direct matches, then we will try to match it directly. If the slippage is too high, then it's just not going to be executed.
Got it. And so you've done 100 million in total volume so far. That's pretty cool. But speaking of volume, so we've had a few collaterals come on, and they pretty much have been pretty much dead on arrival, right? No one's interested in drawing DAI against them. What's the volume like? I was trying to look it up on CoinGecko. What's the daily volume of Gnosis, the trading volume? Just trying to get an idea. I know you mentioned it's on Uniswap and Balancer. If you could just give us those numbers, or maybe you did.
There's so the volume reported on CoinMarketCap, I believe, is around $10 million per day. I would consider part of this wash trading. I estimate the actual trading volume probably be around 3 to 5 million, maybe. We are also continuously talking to some big exchanges, of course, for listing. Made some good progress on this end. Nothing is guaranteed, but that would hopefully also be a way to increase volume of GNO.
And on Balancer, Uniswap, do you know what the?
So there the volume has been, I think the last week or so, or since the market crashed significantly, it has been around 1 million per day on those market makers. Previously, it was significantly higher, around 4 million, but the last week or so it has been dropping to 1 million per day, or maybe 2 million.
Cool. Thanks, Stefan. Appreciate that.
No worries.
Stefan, do you know, or do you suspect that holders of the GNO will actually use it, or is it more the use case would be treasury? Because that's another thing that should be considered, right? If it's mainly the treasury team, that could be good because you could, in theory, at least guarantee a certain volume upfront. But on the other hand, another risk to add that is that if Gnosis fails, and let's touch wood on this one, but if that happens, then the whole collateral type and vault would be falling under.
So I expect quite a few GNO token holders to be interested in this. I think certainly Gnosis DAO itself, but also many other GNO token holders are heavily invested in DeFi and just waiting for this to happen. So I would be surprised if the vault is not maxed out quickly. Regarding the value of GNO, right now, GNO is trading still below the book value actually of the Ether that we want to transfer. I think, well, we have to consider that we did the announcement of transferring 150,000 Ether in November. So many months have passed where we could not make a clear update on this. Actually, this year is kind of the first official update that is now finally going to happen. And of course, I expect once this activity is happening in the public, this will also have an impact on the GNO price. We will see. But I'm certain that Gnosis DAO and also many GNO token holders will use GNO vaults to generate DAI. They have zero doubt.
Would you have like a rough idea of like scale in terms of how the treasury might like to use it?
Well, that's a good question.
Non-binding also, Stefan. You don't need to comment. It's
I can only speak for myself. The DAO has to decide, obviously. Right. But my guess would be, given the current situation, well, if you're willing to, let's say, allow to generate up to, let's say, 20 or 30 million DAI, I would totally see this being used.
Yeah, that's nice. That's exciting.
Yeah, so it would definitely, like, I'm pretty sure that the limiting factor here will be what your risk team would assess to what is reasonable. But I'm also pretty sure that this would be maxed out. Like Gnosis is full of DeFi Degans, as I think Maker as well. So I would be very surprised if that's not happening.
Nice. Are there any other questions? Pablo, hello Pablo, Paper, Tim, we haven't heard you in a while.
I think Theo had a question, no?
Yes, I mean, I found impressive that the team decided to vest the tokens over a 8-year period, and probably it's something that most projects should look at. I was curious, what is the model behind it, and what's the rationale behind it as well? And in the meantime, I was looking over the participation agreement on GitHub, so I was reading that, so I got distracted by it. But that was my question, just what's the rationale behind the 8-year vesting period, and how the model actually works for contributors, for people that contribute to Gnosis.
Right. Yeah. So right now we have, until now we basically had a token program Gnosis internally to incentivize Gnosis employees. Now we would like to make this much more public to allow any third parties to be also directly talking to Gnosis DAO about how this can be done. Or similar, I guess, how you guys have been spinning out core units, which will receive some MKR. We want to do the same. And the vesting schedule is still, I think, it's allowing to withdraw too many GNO in a short time. So I think it's still not conservative enough. I think we have to see if you find a very good use case for those GNO. So right now, I can open the slide again. So this is the GNO circulation right now, or GNO distribution. And right now there's just about 1.5 million GNO in circulation. And right now the vesting schedule would be about 1 million GNO, or a little bit more than 1 million GNO would be printed each year. So that's a very, very high inflation, where I don't really see yet how this can be done, or like how this GNO should be used. There might be decisions which could allow to use these amount of GNO. For example, there could be potentially a token merger with another project. That could eventually be a way how a lot of GNO could be used. But those are very big decisions. I don't know if any of those will happen. If we don't see that there is such a potential future, then I think it's quite likely that Gnosis DAO will decide to burn significant amount of GNO to make it more transparent to investors, to reason about the circulation of GNO and how the market cap will potentially change, or how the GNO circulation will change in the future.
Nice.
Thanks for sharing.
Regarding the timelines, Stefan, are you planning to go into the next available cycle? What's the plan?
Yeah, so you mean the timeline for multi-collateral DAI, or the timeline for, yeah, we would like to go, of course, as soon as possible. Right now, our timeline for Gnosis DAO is that within the next couple of weeks, the participation agreement is basically available, same with SafeSnap. And at that point, Gnosis DAO is fully operational, and all the treasury management decisions could be done publicly. And I think it would be very cool to have Gnosis DAO as a big customer of Maker to use their treasury to open CDPs and such. And for us, the sooner the better. And we're happy. There's also maybe something to consider. Gnosis has significant developer resources. So we have about 40 engineers working on Gnosis, and out of which are about 10 that work on smart contracts. And we also have even our own auditing team inside Gnosis, so we can get things done quite quickly if you want to. And I know there are some smart contract dependencies also on Maker side to build some adapters and such. there we could potentially also help to streamline the process if that's helpful. Yeah.
Great. Are there any parting questions before we close the call?
Yeah, Stefan, are you going to be doing more of the auctions like Boson protocol in the near future?
Yeah, there's one big upcoming. It's the VitaDAO auction. VitaDAO is this DAO that is funding research on longevity. And yeah, they are basically the research that they fund will result in IP that the DAO will own. And yeah, this is a project that has been endorsed by quite a few OGs like Vitalik and Balazs. And I would expect this to get quite some attention, and they are going to run over Gnosis Auction. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. Alpha. Thanks, man. Very cool. And do you think, I was just thinking outside the box here, do you think the Gnosis community would be willing to create a vested Gnosis token as an option to maybe create more liquidity and use that for something like a MakerDAO Vault? Is that something you guys have thought about, discussed in your forums? Just kind of crossed my mind right now.
Yeah, so far, too many discussions have been done internally. And yes, we definitely discuss this, but we have to be more discussing this also on the forum. And I think the good thing about Gnosis DAO is that this enforces us to do this. Right now, like the ether is still in Gnosis limited, and basically we decide internally how to manage this, and we have this discussion internally. But the step of moving all these funds into Gnosis DAO will enforce us to do it publicly, get the GNO token community involved, and then we will have these discussions finally also out in the open. But yeah, internally, of course, we have been thinking about those for quite a while. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, man. And hopefully, really liked what you guys are doing. Hopefully, the Maker community will feel the same way. Have you guys on board it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Stefan, where is a good way for people to find you and ping you and ask you questions if that comes to the case?
Yeah, you can ping me on Twitter. My DMs are open, but you can also write me on Telegram. It's just Stefan George together. And yeah, I think those are the two best ways to contact me. You can also write me an email, old fashioned, Stefan@gnosis.pm. But I guess Twitter and Telegram, I'll probably respond faster.
Sounds good. So thank you very much for coming, Stefan. It was really nice getting to know more about the project. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming to the call and joining us everywhere.
Thanks for having me.
Have a nice one.
Cool. Have a great day.